Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of His Dark Materials. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The fact of the matter is, it should have kind of been a little obvious from the beginning that, obviously Miss Coulter is someone of some high caliber or something, because the fact is, it's like, oh, I don't own this whole building, but I own an entire floor. And I guess that should have been some sign of like, she's high position in something. But I started getting this feeling because I thought it was so interesting because because the entire episode she's trying to teach Lyra to be kind of prim and proper and like, oh, I'm going to teach you how to wield power and kind of make people control you, because it's like, oh, look at this institute, how many people here are actually women? So it's kind of a thing of like, basically people will kind of look at you, basically underestimate you, but with me here, no one's going to like basically scratch you. So it's like, because I have a lot of pull and say here. Once again, that should have been an example of you're definitely somebody really important, because even very important people of like, oh yeah, this guy mapped out this great ocean and stuff like that, and he knows your name and stuff like that. So it's just, it should have been obvious, but I do like that they kind of slowly unveiled that. And I think it is so interesting because it seems like even the fact is of like Lyra tells that story about like her and Roger with like the whole hair thing of like, oh, he climbed up my hair and then he pulled me up, and she's like, stop lying. And I was like, she's like, I'm not. And it's just like, why would you get so upset about that? And I guess maybe because in a weird way, Miss Coulter must not like liars, because it seems like that's what upsets her. So, and when you look at everything else in the episode, it kind of upsets her in certain regards. So maybe that's what it is. Like people being a little deceptive, which is interesting considering the fact that she's very deceptive, but maybe she doesn't like being lied to. I can do a little deception towards people, but I don't like it being towards me, because she wants Lyra to be like, no. I want our relationship to be based on 100% honesty, which I know that's not the case considering the fact that she's lying through her teeth to Lyra, but it makes you think like maybe that is it. I don't know. She had this look on her face when Lyra, like when she was just sitting there in the bathroom, like what is she thinking about? What's she contemplating about? I also feel so bad for her demon, because she's kind of like, at one moment Lyra brings up dust and stuff, and she's like, oh, what do you know about dust? It's like, oh, it's from space and stuff like that, and it's something only adults have, but it's like, it's not something that kids have. And then she starts squeezing her demon, and it's like, that's interesting. I should also note something too, because like this episode really kind of gave us some more insight into the whole demon and human relationship. In one case, like, I was under the impression, because I knew like Pan, for example, shifts a lot because Pan hasn't 100% decided what form Pan wants to just, stay as. So I was curious about that whole situation. And then you see at one point, like obviously Pan's a weasel, I guess is kind of Pan's typical form. I don't know whether that be considered like a weasel or a mongoose. I think it'd be a weasel, but whatever the case may be, jumps off the bed, turns into a butterfly. So it's like, do you just happen to turn into the right thing? Or is it the thing of like, you can control it, but other moments, maybe it is a thing if you're constantly in flux. So I wonder, is there a little give and take with that? Because it seems in other instances, it seems like Pan transforms on purpose, but in other cases, it just seems like it's kind of, especially later on when like the whole monkey attack thing, we'll get to that soon enough, but it's like Pan kept shifting into forms, I think that would kind of particularly help get away from it. But we also learned another key valuable bit of information about demons. Well, two other things actually. One, demons and humans have a symbiotic relationship that they can't be too far away from each other, because apparently it's too painful, because that's what was kind of catching Lyra's attention. It's like, whoa, but your demon was in there. And she's like, what are you talking about, Lyra? My demon's been with me the entire time. It's like, no, I'm not crazy. I just, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that's kind of interesting being like, okay, because I guess, and that's super abnormal, because no human can be that separated from their demon without them being in great amount of pain. But it's like, your demon was in that other room and you were down the hallway, you were super alone, and then all of a sudden your demon kind of walks behind your back. I was like, that was super creepy, and I just liked how that was done. But it was just kind of interesting to learn that. And also, we learned that demons and humans also share pain. You hurt a demon, you're hurting a human. I'm sure it works vice versa. If a human gets hurt, the demon gets hurt too. So it is neat to know that how deep that connection runs like that. So I just thought that in itself was kind of, very fascinating. We obviously learned that she's connected to the Magisterium because two fathers, show up. What was it? Father McPhail shows up, and he talks about the fact that the cardinal doesn't like kind of what her plan is. And that moment, and I'm like, because the moment they start mentioning, was it the general obligation group or whatever, I was like, right. I was like, aka gobblers, right? And I'm like, okay. So then I start thinking like, but then like the way that conversation was going, I was like, you were connected to this is your, it's like, because like the whole thing of like, because the whole conversation with the cardinal was like, we need to get this gobbler thing under control because the Egyptians had just broken into a place they were at. Luckily the gobblers are good at what they were able to kind of move everyone, but it's like, it's going to draw too much attention. So, and it's like, okay, so we've learned that obviously dust is something that's connected to adults but not kids. So then becomes the big question of like, okay, so if that's the case, maybe that's what this is all about for Miss Coulter. She's kid, because the whole thing, because even Egyptians were like, why are they kidnapping kids? Specifically, they're kidnapping kids that I think no one would necessarily miss. Whereas like the Egyptians are kind of, like I brought up last episode, seem to be kind of these outsiders that it's like, even if they kind of bring up a bit of a fuss about their missing kids, I guess they're so out of the system, no one's going to listen to them anyway. Like, I don't think they're kind of guarded under the system like everyone else would. I think the problem with kidnapping Roger is that it puts a compromising position because it's like Lyra is actually looking for him. So it adds even more urgency to the whole situation. But then you think like, well, once again, I brought it up last episode. There's no way Miss Coulter, like there's no way Roger wasn't taken because Miss Coulter wanted it that way. She wanted to fully bring Lyra to London, but she didn't want Roger to be there to kind of distract her. It's like, no, I need her to kind of rely on me and believe in me, you know, wholeheartedly. So that's why she took Roger, to get him more so out of the way. It's like, well, having more kids under, well, no, it makes you wonder, like in the grand scheme of things, because she later on goes, Roger. So either like, because she had never met Roger, it was someone else that took him. So it could just be like, oh, kidnap this kid named Roger. And so that was her first time meeting him later on. It's like, oh, you're Roger. Or it just could be a thing of like, maybe they just, I was about to say not unless it's a happy coincidence. Like that's too much of a happy coincidence. So it has to be a thing of like, she did it on purpose. She's like, oh, get this Roger kid. And now she's like, oh, so you're Roger. So I kind of dealt with that in my own head, but regardless. I think it's actually kind of interesting how they set up the whole situation with Lyra, because like obviously like Pam was like, oh, there's something with the pipes. You saying it's pipes, but it's like, no, it's something else. But Lyra didn't want to listen. She kept throwing her pillows at Pam because for her, she enjoyed this. It's like, because for one, it's like Miss Coulter's talking about how, you know, essentially how special she is. And what did, you know, Azriel say last episode of like, everyone's special, kind of making it seem like no one's special, you know. And like I said, I'm trying to understand why he made that statement to Roger, but regardless. But the fact of the matter is Lyra feels important. She feels special, like, oh, I can be something, I can be anything, you know. And so I think having someone treat her nice, as someone who hasn't really had parents in her life, to have someone in her life like Miss Coulter who's like almost like a mother figure, I think that excited her. And it's like, oh my God, I get to have this entire room to myself. I get to just, you know, she thought it'd probably be some fun adventure, but it's like, oh, Coulter's getting her to learn stuff, which is like, I'm wondering why. Because like the thing is, why is Lyra in particular so important? Because you kidnap all these other kids, but why not take her with the gobblers? Why is she so special? Is she supposed to be your controlled subject, where it's like, you know, she's the X variable in whatever experiment it is that you're performing? Because later on, Lyra finds like some blueprints to stuff like that, and it's like there's some machine with demons and humans. I guess like they all play some role, which is like, okay, so the kids are being kidnapped because once again, it's like they're like non-connection to dust, you know? And I guess that's because like her whole thing is trying to understand dust, which obviously the cardinal was like, oh yeah, it's fine and dandy, but now it's drawing too much attention. And even what was it, Father McPhail was kind of like, the fact of the matter is the magisterium comes first above anything else, no matter what we want, because it's the most important thing. So we protect it. Like anything that could blow back on the magisterium, we cut that out because the magisterium needs to reign supreme. It needs to be the most important thing. Almost sounds like they've had to make personal sacrifices, and those sacrifices were necessary to make sure that the magisterium stayed where it was. You know, we kind of devote ourselves wholeheartedly to it, is kind of what I want. I think I also thought it was kind of interesting because there was a whole thing where Miss Coulter was offering him tea, and he was like, I don't drink tea. And I'm like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? I don't know if that's supposed to, that seemed like such a small thing, but it seems so significant, you know? So regardless, maybe it's something about Miss Coulter's tea in particular that is like, no, you're not going to get me to drink it. Or is that supposed to be something that the magisterium just kind of is a no-no against? Well, because this is kind of like an alternate reality. So maybe tea has significance. Maybe like, you know, where our world, the Boston Tea Party type of thing happened. So maybe that didn't happen in its universe, or maybe it did. You know, maybe it's something like supposed to be like on a historical level. The reason why that, but then why would she offer? You know, so it's like I don't know what to make of that. Like I said, it's such a small like couple seconds of dialogue, but it's like it seemed like that meant something. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. It was interesting to find out that, like, obviously, like, the vents and stuff like that, it's like, oh, the noises they kept hearing, because it sounded like an animal, and I was like, isn't that her demon? And it turns out it was her demon, because the vents is how it gets around, and it's listening out. And I wonder, does that work with demons? Like, if a demon is able to hear your conversation, do you automatically know? Like, can a demon kind of... It's kind of a crazy pull to make right now. I only know about this because of vicariously through other people, because I don't have a Switch, but kind of like how... legions work in Astral Chain. I know that's a reference I'm probably making that no one will get, but how they can spy on people because normal people can't see them, and it brings back the information to you. So I'm wondering, is it a kind of a similar thing where it's like if a demon learns something? Well, a more broader example would be like Naruto. When Naruto does a shadow clone thing, any information he learns, the moment the shadow clone disappears, he immediately gains all the experience and knowledge it had. So is it a similar thing where it's like a demon's, telepathically is able to send that back to you, like, play by play? Like, is it, or does the demon come back and talk to you? Well, because our demon doesn't seem like it talks. So maybe maybe there's a reason behind that too. Maybe that could be, because like I said, she comes off a little abusive towards her demon, because it's like, oh, the moment Lyra found out, like, oh, you and your demon were in different places, she smacked her demon, and that moment you almost feel bad. I'm like, oh, poor little guy, you kind of feel bad for him. And he almost has like this innocent look on his face, like when she's, getting the kids, so they all stay calm. It's like, no, I'm gonna take you to a great place. Write these letters to your parents, and obviously in Roger's case, write this letter to Lyra. Oh, it's so beautiful. Burn them, and it's like, oh. And almost her demon's kind of looking at it, almost has this like sweet, innocent look on its face, which is obviously funny considering we saw that after, because Lyra was standing up to her, being like, the fact of the matter is, like, there's something up here, The fact is, when the Magisterium was there, she got super pissed. And it's like, you're mad. And she's like, no, I'm not mad. She's like, you are mad, and you're still mad. And I think, she doesn't like someone, standing up to her like that. It's like, basically know your place. And so she ends up getting her demon to attack Pan, and it's like, so when our guests show up, you're going to be prim and proper, and there are not going to be any issues, are there? But it's so interesting because it's like, like I said, it seems like she doesn't like lies, because she drops the bomb that, like, Azrael isn't your uncle, he's your dad. I don't know why he spent all this time lying to you about it and stuff like that. And so it's just kind of like also saying that he's not much of a man and all that. So I'm like, and then at that moment she was tearing up. It's like, you seem a bit of a monster, yet in this moment you tear up. So it makes you wonder, is Lyra supposed to be your daughter? Because it's like, oh, who could your mom be? It could possibly be anyone. But I'm wondering, is it her? I mean, I don't know. Because maybe it's kind of the thing of kind of like, oh, she's sad because it's like, the fact is, like, I'm doing this all for you because I love you and I care about you. But it seems like, I don't know. Or maybe it makes her think of her own personal situation. I don't know. Because she doesn't have any children of her own. Maybe she did and lost them. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that, but it's interesting. Like, the fact is that's the one moment, because every other moment just seems like her being duplicitous, but in that moment, that felt like a real moment of her just being sad about the whole, like, oh, I shouldn't have told Lyra that her heart's broken. I feel bad that her heart's broken. Because I think no matter what the circumstances is, I think she does care about Lyra. She definitely doesn't care about the other kids. They're all a means to an end, but Lyra's special to her for whatever reason, whether it is like, oh, I'm your mother, or maybe not. If you know, don't let me know, because, I want to find out as the show unveils stuff. But it was just kind of interesting. I brought up, I think, she doesn't like, I don't think she likes taking orders from people, because that's why she was just kind of upset at the Magisterium, showing up, because it's just kind of like, this is my place to kind of run things, and like the Cardinal, he wants to say something to me, he can say it to me, directly. So I just think that whole situation is interesting. I think she's not really big on like following orders. Like, I'd rather be in charge. This is supposed to be my thing, but you're able to come in and tell me what to do. No, she doesn't like that at all. But also, once again, the big question is, well, what is she if she's not a normal human? If she's able to be as far away from her demon like she is, once again, what is it that she's building? Apparently this is, because the kids are trying to get to the north and everything, but it's like, why well, she's taking the kids to the north is what I'm trying to say, which, obviously we know Azrael is there as well. So there's so much going on there that I think is so fascinating. There's also, I'm always blanking on the things named the device. Like, I hear its name and then it just like goes in one ear and out the other. But, a lithiometer, I'm going to butcher that every time. I'm never going to remember. I literally had to Google it right now. I shit you not. Luckily, I didn't look anything up, but it's just like I can never sink that word into my head. Regardless, the fact is we still don't know how it really operates, but we did see a moment of it operating on its own. So maybe in moments where like Lyra isn't focused on trying to do it, maybe subconsciously she's able to kind of make it activate. It seemed like it was trying to tell her something, but maybe it wasn't necessarily trying to tell her something. Maybe it was just showing like, okay, it's there. It's in the makings of like something happening with that. I don't know, what to make of it. So then there's another really fascinating side of this episode where we have Boreal showing up at the college and being like, oh, like, where's the head of that dude? Which, the master's like, we buried it. The fact of the matter is, and once again, it's kind of interesting when you see the master kind of flex to be like, no, the college has its free reign. The magisterium, I couldn't get that out, doesn't have rain in here. So what we say kind of goes here, But then Boreal sneaks in to find the skull, and it turns out like, oh, that's not the skull, which is like, how did you know that? I guess like maybe his demon was able to kind of tell him, like, or maybe because the dude's head specifically, because maybe you had something to do with his head getting lopped off. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Like, I guess maybe the shape of it was like, no, that's definitely not his head. So that means like Azrael brought back a fake head just to, I guess, prove his point. He knew like, oh, I can't find this dude's head, but I know what I know, so I have to bring something back to the college for them to give me the funding to do my research. So that's interesting. And then this leads to Boreal being like, okay, so if he's not dead and he's not here, he must be. And he he finds a what they're referring to as a window into the other world. And like, okay, I wasn't expecting the world to be what it is. And I like that a lot, where it's like, oh, it's a modern day world. It's literally our present day world. So basically, it seems like their world is kind of like this fantastical world that's kind of stuck in its, present time. It's an example I had made last time was referencing Full Metal Alchemist. When you look at when Ed crossed over into the gate into that other world, that was a more modern world, kind of showing you that's what made me, because I never realized it at the time, and I might have brought this up last time too, like of how like in Full Metal Alchemist, I didn't realize it was an alternate take on our world in like the 1920s, 30s, 40s or something like that. Like, a great example, I'm pulling from examples I know not many people would know, but like Shadow Hearts, the video game series, like that's an alternate take on history. Like there's real world stuff mixed in there with demons and magic and stuff like that, or it seems like obviously that's what this world is like. But it's so interesting because that world, that the Magisterium world that they have control over and everything, is stuck looking a specific way and stuff like that. So it's an alternate history that's, because like, whereas like Full Metal Alchemist, both worlds were the same time frame, just, it's like, oh, in this world, alchemy exists, so the world's a little different. This world is more mirrored to the real world because, and so it's that same thing. So it's like, why is that world kind of, I guess it's supposed to be kind of almost like a steampunk type of vibe of like the world continued, but it's continued down almost a steampunk magical route, whereas the real world went down the more technological route. And I think this speaks volumes about how integrated the, Magisterium is with the other world, because Boreal came in there, he's like clicked up like he's charging up a phone and everything. So it's like, it's not like this is a foreign thing to you. Like you've been to this world before. Like it shows you how much of a grasp Magisterium has on it, which also begs the question, like that means that literally anyone, if you can find the window, you can slip through, which, I wonder, does that relate to dust in any shape or form? Because obviously it's like dust can't be seen by the naked eye, and you need like special stuff. But it's like, how can like the Magisterium see the windows? Like I guess when you're looking at basically what is essentially a dimensional crack, I guess there's no hiding that even on a dust level. But obviously, like it took Azrael using a special lens to see that castle. So it's peeking into another world. So it's just interesting, which begs the question. Like obviously, there's one at Oxford. Which also begs the question, did the other dude that Azrael claimed to have found, did he actually slip into this other world, kind of basic our world? Did he slip into that world by accident? Does that mean there is another portal up north? Is this the only one that the Magisterium is aware of, or are there other ones out there that maybe they just haven't, locked down yet? I don't know. It begs a lot of questions, What's also interesting, too, to show that, I wonder, are demons affected in any shape or form? Because Boreal had his demon with him. He's like, I'm just not going to keep it out and flaunt it around. I mean, it's not like anyone would really notice because it'll probably look just like a regular animal to anyone else. In the sense of, like, as long as it's not talking, which, once again, I wonder, is that something specifically tied to demons that are young and haven't decided yet? Are they the only ones that can talk? Because in any other, well, no, because I was about to say we saw with no, that's wrong, because Adriel's his demon talked last episode, so it's like, no, I'm just curious. Maybe certain demons just don't choose not to talk, or maybe there's a reason behind that. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a thing I'm like overthinking. But I just thought that was kind of fascinating. And it does seem like there are certain people in this world who know about the other world, because it is the thing of like, I guess Boreal has at least kind of like a person on the other side doing work for him of like, yeah, I want you to find this person for me. That guy's like, yeah, the fact of the matter is our world can help your world. And I'm wondering what ways. Like, is it just with their technology and stuff like that? But it's like, but he also said like stuff from your world can also help our world. So, but the whole point is to keep the world separated, because the Magisterium doesn't want, anyone else kind of screwing up what they have. They have complete control of this world. Other people find out about other worlds. They start maybe escaping their grasp. So it's like, let us be the only ones who know for sure that there are other worlds, to kind of consolidate all that power ourselves. So that's a whole route of things. Obviously, there was that thing at the later in the episode with the whole party and everything, where Lyra ends up talking to a reporter who, interestingly enough, that reporter is played by the actress who played Lyta and on Krypton, which I'm still super bummed that show got canceled. Still got my fingers crossed, hoping that something will happen with that, where they end up bringing that back. Regardless, that's a bit of a tangent, but I got giddy when I was like, Lyta. But nevertheless, it turns out she's a journalist who ends up telling, Lyra the truth of like, oh yeah, she's the one that's ahead of all this whole thing. It's like, oh, because she thought like, oh, it's interesting that a kid would stay around her. I guess that way you can make sure you don't get gobbled, basically. And it's like, oh, you didn't know. And so Lyra's like, wait, now, because now it turns into the whole thing of like, obviously you had, your feelings of like she was lying to you before, but now it's even more so of like, wait, that means she took Roger. She's been pretending this entire time like she was looking for Roger, but she never was, which even Pam was like, I don't think she's looking for Roger. And now Lyra knows for sure she wasn't, because she's the one who took him. So, and there was that whole thing at the end, which is super sad. Boreal ends up killing the journalist, her demon, and ends up killing her. And I'm like, oh, that's sad. I was almost kind of hopeful that we'd see more of her, because I was like, oh, and it's like, oh, okay. But regardless, I guess, once again, it's like the Magisterium doesn't want their business getting out. So it's like, yeah, that lady knows too much. And it's obviously she caused complications by telling Lyra the truth, and Lyra bounces. So, but at the end, we see her and Pan get kidnapped by the dude who's kidnapping the kids. Not less that, well, you would, because that's the same dude at the very least, it seems. So he works with, works for Miss Coulter. So it becomes a whole thing of like, okay, so if that's the case, then is he just going to bring her back? And, how's that whole situation going to play out now of like Lyra knows the truth and everything, her desperation to find Roger, and even Roger being like, oh no, my friend Lyra, she's definitely going to be looking for me, So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this ends up taking us. We learned a lot of interesting things in this episode. Obviously, if you're more familiar with books, you're like, it's like, yeah, this is probably nothing new. But, once again, for someone who's never read the book, it's just really interesting to see kind of things expand. And that's kind of getting an understanding of everything. I'm really interested to kind of dive into this alternate world stuff and kind of see like, okay, so is it going to be like are these other worlds alternate realities like that one? Are they different? Like, are some going to be more mystical like the world we're in? Are there going to be some more, maybe even more technologically? I'm curious to see, like, are we dealing with like a multiverse type of situation was what I'm kind of going for? Because the best example I can use of that is like The Flash, how every Earth is a little different, like, vibe and feel wise, and just, are they, they're similar in certain regards but very different in others. Are some going to be closer to the world that this show takes place in mainly, and then what about this, are others going to be reflective of this other world that's obviously very reflective of our own? Stuff like that kind of gets my mind wondering. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see where things take us going forward from here. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.